Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Game Develop Repeat. Today, I want to talk about two different things. First, what keeps us playing games, individual games that we enjoy, or games in general. I want to think about the loops that keep us sucked in and the quiet little motivations, like wanting to see the end of the story or just playing out of habit. And then, I want to talk about what keeps us developing. What kind of motivations keep you going through that loop of creating games or creating whatever it is that you enjoy creating? Maybe it's art, maybe it's music, maybe it's writing. This is Game Develop Repeat. I'm your host, Chris, and thank you for joining us. I actually thought of this topic because I was playing the game Dune Awakening. And I don't know why I wanted to play this game, and I don't know why I kept playing this game. It's odd. It's a genre that I don't tend to play that much, but I do love Dune. I mean, survival crafting games are games that I feel like I'm going to absolutely love every time, and then I start playing them and I get a certain depth into them and go, okay, I'm good, and I bounce off of them. It's one of those genres for me. I always want to love them, and then, except for Subnautica, I basically never do. But Dune is a universe that I like. I like the whole vibe. I was excited about the game, and I went, you know what? Screw it. I'm buying it. We're going in on it. Let's check it out. And the game is good. It's a good game, but it's not compelling enough for me to go, okay, I'm going to spend so much time in it. For me personally, there are going to be people who love it, who it's like the perfect game for. For me, it is this is pretty good. I'm probably good at like 8 hours. You know, like I don't need to go crazy deep into this one. I spend a little bit of time with it and get out of there. But for some reason, I kept playing it. Like I wanted to stop playing it probably after like 4 or 5 hours. I was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I even uninstalled the thing, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna play it some more, and I reinstalled it, and I played it some more, and I was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. And installed it again. I reinstalled it a second time. Installed it a third time, but reinstalled it a second time. And was like, okay, let's go back in on this. And I was like, why do I keep playing it more when I'm not really that into it? But there's something compelling. I'm like, maybe I just need to go a little further. Maybe I just need to approach it with a different perspective. Maybe this, that, the other. And I just keep going back for more. And that got me thinking about all the different ways that games keep us playing. This particular game, Dune Awakening, I think it keeps you playing because you want to build the next thing, you want to explore the next area, you want to get better, you want to have your RPG mechanics. It's got a wide variety of things to keep you playing, none of which are particularly like manipulative or mean or bad, right? Like there are games where I don't like the way they keep you playing. There are games where I go, that's not in the service of gameplay, and I can be a little bit uptight about that. I can be a little bit overzealous about that. But when a game does things that are like, here's daily rewards, and it's like, come on, you're just trying to get me addicted, and I don't like that, right? There's stuff like that that I tend to take issue with, and not universally, right? But I tend to take issue with those things. I haven't seen anything like that in Dune so far. It's just got some compelling mechanics, and it's got a wide variety of them. It's got all of the different hooks that make you go, but what about the next thing, right? There is character progression, there's item acquisition, there is crafting, there's exploration, there's all of these different things that pull you along and make you go, just play a little longer, just see what the next thing is. And it's got an interesting story with a lot of mystery in it. That's kind of an alternative version of the Dune story. I'm not that deep into it, so there's really no risk of me spoiling anything. But it is, not the exact same timeline, I guess, is probably the way to put it. I'm not sure that I have a full understanding of it, but it is, not what you would expect necessarily if you jumped into it blind. Now, those are all ways that it keeps you playing. What about some other games? Warcraft 3, always a go-to for me, kept me playing through competition, through improving, through getting better. I'm sure I've talked about that before. Some games keep you going through story, like JRPGs have that tendency. Ooh, maybe we can categorize this a little bit. JRPGs and straight up story games, right? Visual novels have a tendency to keep you going because you want to see what happens with the characters, what happens with the world, what happens with the story. Games like Civilization and strategy games, maybe even something like Satisfactory or Factorio, they keep you playing because you want to execute your plan and see how it turns out. And you want to, in some cases, refine what you're doing, and then in other cases, survive, right, and be tactical, right? So maybe I'm categorizing too many games into the same motivation, but there is a general motivation of I want to execute my plan. I want to see how it turns out. I want to get to that goal and see how it interacts with all of the mechanics of the game. Speaking of finishing a plan, games like House Flipper, games where you just want the satisfaction of finishing something. Power Wash Simulator, another great example. You want to see it go from mess to clean. Lawn Mowing Simulator, all of these simulators that are almost cleaning games. Ooh, Crime Scene Cleaner, a good game. Those are their own particular type of motivation. Now, they'll often tie in a little bit of story. Power Wash Simulator has a surprisingly compelling world and story. Crime Scene Cleaner has a pretty compelling story. What was the other example that I mentioned? House Flipper, not so much with the story, but there is some amount of I am this character kind of turning my life around. Like, there's no real big story thing, but you kind of feel it through the gameplay. There's your own imagined story. On the furthest extreme of this, maybe this is a combination. I was going to say on the furthest extreme of imagined story is playing Dungeons and Dragons and wanting to see how the story unfolds, but there's also seeing how your own character's plan unfolds, or your plan for your character, I should say. How well are you min-maxing your character? How well are you making sure that you get exactly the stats that you want? How far will you get in your plan? Will you get that item that you need to really flesh out the character and compensate for some of your weak spots? Will you be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish? And then there's games that motivate you to keep going by just unlocking things. Just unlocking things after things after things. A lot of MMOs are this way, but that's not exactly what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking not even trading card games. What am I thinking of? Is it puzzle games? There's an element of this that I'm trying to nail down that's a little bit different from all of those. So let me just start describing and see if a game pops into my head. There is a feeling of unlocking a mechanic, unlocking a new ability, a new item that's not necessarily character progression. I mean, it can be, but is sort of world progression or player progression. Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight is a perfect example. Metroidvanias in general. Subnautica, oddly enough, kind of a perfect example. Survival crafting games, kind of a good example. Any kind of survival crafting game and also any Metroidvania tends to have this motivation of, I want to unlock stuff. I want to see what else I can get to. Now you can tie in some story. You can tie in whatever the heck else you want. So what have we gone through? This has been pretty unstructured. I'm in this strange mixture of it's an idea that I could do in an extremely structured way, but this podcast is very improvisational because of my time restraints. So here we are, kind of making a list as we go. We've got unlocking things. We've got seeing the story play out. We've got making your own plan and seeing that play out. We've got seeing something go from dirty to clean. So restoring things, right? I'm missing one huge thing, which is just immersing yourself in a world, but I don't know if that's what keeps you playing. Maybe this is just me. That doesn't keep me playing, I don't think. There are probably people who play for the sake of, I want to go back into that cozy world. Ooh, Stardew Valley, did it do that with me? Maybe it did. Is that why I was playing that game? I don't think so. Maybe that was a small portion of it. Maybe I didn't even realize that that was a large part of my motivation for playing it. And there's also social elements. That can be a big one, especially MMOs, but you can have fake socialization. I do think this was a big reason why I played Stardew Valley and Spiritfarer as well. This social interaction with these characters, these like nice, friendly, predictable social interactions, that can be weirdly motivating. That can be immersive and make you want to go back to the game and just have a nice, cozy, simple, extremely uncomplicated interaction where you just go, oh, okay, I know exactly how this is going to go. Boom, 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 done. Simplicity. There are so many ways to keep us playing, right? There are so many ways. And I think one of the beautiful things is when somebody has a clear vision for how they want to keep you playing and they execute on it well and they don't do anything manipulative or underhanded. And I know that I get on this. I know that I'm a little picky about it. But there are mechanics that I think are not ethical. There are mechanics that I think take away from the enjoyment of the game and the quality of the game. I think these tend to exist in MMOs because there's a motivation that's all messed up. They're motivated to keep you subscribed rather than to get you to buy. Generally, it's a bit of a broad statement. But daily quests, I've gone on that whole thing on a previous episode. I've talked about daily quests and how they can serve a purpose, but generally I'm against them, and any of these techniques to keep you checking in every single day. I had a thought today that we're going to talk about in the next section, I guess. You know what? Let's get this out of the way because I want the develop section today to be more about my own development. Let me get this out of the way here, and we'll transition over. I had a thought that I want to make small games that don't consume your life. And the reason I mention it here is because I get frustrated by these larger games that are perpetual, that are never ending, that are the only game you're going to play for the rest of your life. And I kind of want to do the opposite, I don't want something to be your entire life. I don't want something I make to be someone's whole life, even if it's kind of wholesome. Like Stardew Valley is probably some people's whole life. Dwarf Fortress is probably some people's whole life. And I just, as much as I love video games, I think that should only be the case in like very specific circumstances, and I don't want to make games that become someone's entire hideaway. And I know that's not taking into account people's specific circumstances. So like if I make a game and somebody ends up playing it their entire life, that's their choice, right? But I don't want to make games that are intentionally pulling people in that way and saying, hey, you don't need to confront the world. You don't need to engage with the world. You don't need to do your part in the world. Just play this game. I kind of want to avoid that. I feel like that on some level does harm. And I recognize there's probably certain circumstances and specific cases where what I'm saying is completely wrong, right? Like there are probably cases where it's really great for somebody to be able to dedicate the majority of their free time to a game that somebody made. And that I have my own narrow perspective. But as far as my own design philosophy, I don't know, these giant games that consume so much of your time, like thousands and thousands of hours, it's not the kind of thing that I want to be creating. Not that I'm at risk for creating that. Maybe I'm just saying this because it's a lot easier for me to justify making tiny projects if I go, no, I don't want to make bigger projects. That's not my interest at all. I want to make small things because it's not because they're more manageable and easier for me to take on. No, I'm doing the world a favor. I could make a game that consumes the remainder of your life. No problem. Of course I could. I just don't want to. Right? It could be that. I don't think it is. I've always wanted to jump from experience to experience with gaming. I mean, sometimes a 20-hour game is too long for me, and sometimes a 20-hour game is too short. I'm going to hit you with the question a little early, and I'm going to remind you of it later. What keeps you going in game development? Or rather, let's phrase this in a better light that isn't going to give us all an existential crisis, because I think that phrasing is a problem. Let's try that again. What do you enjoy about game development? Or what draws you towards game development? How about we put it that way? I think one of the things that draws me towards game development is telling a story. Is telling a story in a unique way that I can't really do in another medium. In music, I can tell emotions, right? I can transmit an emotional experience to other people through music. Kind of. Or an atmosphere or whatever else. There's some sort of emotional transmission going on through music. And it's surprisingly, I don't know how universal it is, but it feels more universal than you would expect for just a collection of sounds, right? I mean, I can't experience what you experience, but it seems like music is a relatively universal emotional language. It's probably not the case, having listened to some like weird postmodern stuff. And, some people listen to something and it makes them angry, and some people listen to something and they're like, oh, I love this. So, fair enough. Fine. Writing, I can tell a story and I can get you to feel emotional, but it's not the same direct connection. It's like sort of a cerebral activation of your emotions rather than like a much more direct kind of raw activation like music does. Art, that one's the one I understand the least. Visual art is hard for me, but you're creating a scene, you're creating an environment, you're still storytelling in a way too, and you can create through animation. I mean, so many different things. And game development combines all of this and gameplay, which allows you to really inhabit the characters and have your own interactive experience with it. It is incredible. It's insane. I cannot believe that this exists, and I think that we take it for granted because so many games exist and we're all engaged with them all the time and so on and so on. But it is absolutely freaking nuts that we have this art form. And that is what draws me towards it. And I'm really glad that I asked this question. This is like the third or fourth time that I've recorded this segment, and I deleted the other recordings of it because, boy, they did not have this same tone, and this is the tone that I agree with. The other ones were me moping about being confused about why I like games, but as soon as I asked the question in a different way, suddenly I got some clarity. So instead of listening to me having an existential crisis, we're listening to me talk about what I love about games, which is kind of the goal. I looked at my last few episode titles and I was like, boy, you're feeling down, huh, bud? I looked at my episode titles for the last like a month, 2 months, and I was like, dude, come on. You don't gotta be that down on the game development. You love doing this. Like all the titles just seem like, oh, I'm failing. What to do when you miss your shot? How bad are you at game development? I suck and I should feel bad. it's so that's just glancing at the titles, and that's not how I feel about it. I just would like to be making more progress. That's all. That's really what it is. So sorry for the dramatic titling, if it's even hit that way for you. Glancing over it, it did for me. But I do love game development. And I did have an existential crisis about it today. I had a whole thing where I was like, Man, how much does me having a different career path lined up affect my desire to develop games? You know, I was like, I now have this career path that's pretty good, and I could spend my spare time on other things. I can hang out with people and do this and that and the other. And there's validity to that, you know, and maybe one day this changes, but I do think making games is just, it's something I love doing. And, you know, I also love connecting with people and I like getting out in the world and I like doing a lot of other things, but I don't have to do those things every day. And it's nice to have just a nice solitary hobby that allows me to explore creative expression and kind of create my whole own universe. And you know what I've lost track of? Because this is maybe the takeaway from today's existential crisis, which I hope was the conclusion of like a couple months of being like, what's going on? You know, I really think I lost track of the enjoying developing games. And I don't know how else to phrase that, but just the feeling of I can play with this, I can explore this, I can do this, and I can do whatever I want, and I can make this interesting thing. And oh, the feeling of being able to have like an interesting emotional impact on somebody else. I haven't even gotten to explore that yet, man. I mean, it made Soot, right? And it has some impact in terms of like being frustrating when you keep falling into some spikes, or like feeling good when you clear a level. And like, that's great. I like that. That's that's cool. I'm proud of it. It's a victory. But I've lost sight of that. I started working on this combat system for this game and I was going, okay, how do I want to do this, that, the other? And like I don't have the big picture. This is hype. I can't wait to like have people experience this, that, whatever. And I feel the need to reconnect with that. Or I feel the need to, and it doesn't need to be a whole big project. I can just like look at that perspective. Like you ask a question a different way, suddenly things start going well. You look at your game dev from a different perspective, maybe it starts going better. Maybe it starts coming out cleaner. So I don't know. I want to reconnect with that a little bit. And I know I've gone off on a tangent and now I'm talking about myself and I apologize. Sometimes I think by talking, and unfortunately or fortunately, sometimes that's what this podcast is. Sometimes it's me talking and you listen to it, and I appreciate that because I don't know. I just do. It's nice to know that you're there. It makes me feel like maybe there's some value coming out of me narrating this and working through this stuff publicly because it helps me. I mean, today's episode, just recording this segment a few times and being like, that's not what I'm trying to convey. That's not true. That's not how it is. And then getting to this version of it made me go, I'm being dramatic. And yeah, there is a thing in my motivation that is like, well, I have a career now and, that changes my motivations. Like I'm no longer trying to get a job in game development out in Seattle, right? Which means that I don't have to worry about learning or Unreal Engine, and also that I don't have as many motivations to do certain things and like learn programming to a certain level and whatever. So it gets a lot of stuff out of the way and it also removes a lot of motivators, but those motivators are kind of crippling and whatever. So it kind of becomes a net neutral thing, maybe even positive. I mean, I don't have as much time for game dev now, for sure, which is frustrating for me, definitely. But as much as that changes things, I like to think that it gets the external rewards out of the way and will ultimately allow me to focus on the joy of making games and let go of the fear and the concerns about making a living and this, that, and the other. Is that a perfect world for me? No. I'd like to have more time for game dev. but it's pretty dang good. So I'm going to work with what I got. And I'd encourage you to work with what you've got, you know? Whatever it is that has you hyped about making games and whatever it is that your situation is. And here's the other thing, and this is a weird one, but if you're not feeling it, that's okay. Today I wasn't feeling it. I didn't force myself to do much. And I wanted to force myself, and then I got into a whole thing about it. I didn't even need to get into a whole thing about it. I could have just taken a day and gone, I'll probably feel better about it tomorrow. So I already asked the question, but I'm repeating it now. What pulls you towards creating games? What is it that excites you about it? What is it that makes you want to do it? Separate from, I hate to give you more direction on this question, answer it however you want, but separate from career and money, if you could. I don't think making games just for the money is good. I know that is an aggressive, pretty firm stance, but I think that if you're making games just for the money, go away. I think go do something else. Get out of here. I hate to be a gatekeeper, but I don't want you here if you're just making games for money, and that is the sole motivation. I think that is bad. I think that is not a reason to make art, and there you go. Now, if money is one of the reasons, if money is really important and you need it to live your life and so on and so on and so on, cool. But if the reason you got into game development is because you look at it and you go, damn, there's a lot of dollar signs over here, then also you're not going to be good at it. Probably. If you are good at it, you're going to be miserable doing it. Go find something that you're not miserable at. And there's not that much money in it, to be honest, unless you knock it out of the park. That's like becoming a musician for the money or becoming like a painter for the money. It's like, brother, that's not a good move. Oh, boy. Anyway, what was the question I even asked you? Oh, what draws you towards game development? What is it that excites you about it? Separate from the money. All right, that is everything that I have for you guys this week. Thank you all for joining me for this especially odd episode. I will see you in the next one. Until then, get out there, make some stuff, and maybe not even have fun with it. Maybe just enjoy it. Be satisfied with it. Something like that. Bye-bye.